Flat game. Like top of the hat. You say hi and then I'll do it.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel.
Firstly, we'd like to thank everyone that showed their concern after Alex's upload the other day.
Also, we have had a few people comment and ask why I was in Italy. The reason for that is my other half and I, we are getting married there next year, and something pretty cool is that I have convinced her to let me use the Defender as the wedding car. Woo! So we have we've got a real timeline now. We've got a date that it's got to be finished, and we've got to drive it down to Italy about this time next year. I realise that seems a long way off, but actually we both got a day job and we only get to work on the truck every couple of weeks for a day or so. So that time I'm sure will
come quickly. We've got to get a move on.
Yeah, we have got to get a move on. As always with these kinds of things, money is an issue, so if you guys would like to help us out, please do check out our Patreon page. We'll put the link in the description below.
Or go to our website and you can check it out, www.busterbuilt.com, and you can click on the link for Patreon. So today we're going to try and clean up the chassis. This was £8 from Lidl.
Yeah.
Lidl. It's a sandblaster. We're going to see how it does. We actually got it to clean the turbo up, but this is obviously a much bigger job, and we're probably going to go through all this, all the material that we have in it in about 2 seconds. But let's see how far it goes. It was £8. Who cares?
Okay, so you will have just seen us using the £8 Lidl shot blaster. Now, it's done an alright job here. As you can see here, it's gone through the coating into the primer, but actually a lot of the scale is still there. We planned on just using it in hard to reach areas sort of around here. It worked pretty well, but actually it's far better for sort of smaller pieces like turbo housing and things you just want to clean up like that. So what we've decided to do here is the majority of the chassis is in good shape. There's bits of surface rust, but you take that rust back and you've actually got coating underneath. So we've accepted the fact that this rear cross member is shot. Comments from our followers, thank you for your input, and we agree this one has had it. Now, you can get just rear replacement cross members that I think probably this is spot welded on. You grind out some spot welds and that will come off the side of the chassis, but it's all quite crispy here, so we think what's better is to get the replacement piece that comes to about here, and just replace all of that back, because everything further forward except for our crispy piece over there is in really good shape. So we're going to nip out now. We're going to get some rust converter and some primer. We're going to give it a good coat of rust converter. Anything that is then sort of scale or just not converting and looking rough, we will grind back those specific areas rather than taking the time to do the whole chassis. Right, we are back from the shop and we got a couple of things. We got a rust remover and we got a rust converter, and we thought we'd test these side by side and see if either work and which one does a better job. We've also got somewhere some hammerite rust converter, but I don't know where it's gone. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up an area that's got rust on it, probably this area, and then use these two products and see if they work and whether we get a good result. So whilst we were waiting for the rust converter to do its thing, I thought I'd come back here and have a look at how this rear cross member is fitted, to see whether there was any hope of us just removing the rear cross member itself and reusing this rear bit of the chassis rail. As you can see here, blown right through it in trying to work out what was going on. There was sort of some seam sealer along here, pulled the seam sealer off and it's completely rotten through. Back here's good, solid. I've given it a good old whack, and no, not rusted through there, but this point here, particularly where the welds and the seam sealer was, very, very bad. On this side, as you can see on the top, completely blown through there. I pulled back that piece of metal here, and it's all just rotten behind it. So unfortunately, we won't be able to use any of this bit of chassis rail, which means we will have to get the piece that cuts off around here. If only we could afford a whole new chassis. So here we are. Right, so on the left hand side is the rust remover, and on the right hand side is the rust converter. Now the rust remover claims that you just put it on and that's that, and it should all just disappear. I'm not convinced by that, but I think if we took a wire brush over it now, a lot of the rust is sort of flaking off, and you can see there's been massive difference to the surface there. The rust has sort of been eaten away and actually is continuing to disappear. On this side, it's sort of relatively typical of what you see of most rust converters. The rust has gone a sort of blue colour, possibly being turned into metal, not really sure. Both products seem to be doing what they say they should. They both say you can paint directly onto them, but I think we will give the surface a further clean up, and then we'll just get a layer of primer on to protect it for now, and continue working on here. Right, so as you can see, we have now ground that back, and that's the kind of surface I think you want to be putting rust converter on. As you can see, we've cleaned it up nicely. There's some little areas of surface rust left, so I'm going to get some wax and grease remover on there, clean it up, then we'll try again with probably the rust converter rather than the rust remover, and then hopefully have a pretty decent surface that we can prime up. Once we've done that, we're going to have a go at cracking these axles off so that we can get to the underside of the chassis as well, and take a look at that, as we haven't seen it, inspected it, done anything down there yet. Right guys, look here, rust converted, cleaned up, really has come out well. No signs of rust there anymore where we've done that to. Here we actually put the rust remover on again just to see it again, leave it a bit and see if it did as good a job. I think it doesn't, but actually, you know, it will brush off. So what we're going to do now is Lewis is going to carry on over there cleaning up where he's ground, get some rust converter on it, and sort of prep as much of this just for a coat of primer at this point. What I'm going to do is we need to get the axles off because we want to flip the chassis over. So I've already taken off this shock here. Those shocks have pretty much had it, and so I need to undo these trailing arms here, big nuts each end, get them off, Then this A-frame here, I'm going to undo at the chassis, here and here, drop that down. And then the sway bar, again, I am going to undo it at the chassis because we're going to have to cut this. So we want that to get as much of that off from here rather than undoing it at this end and leaving it on. Once that's done, I think we should be able to jack it up enough, separate the springs and remove the rear axle. So we have managed to get some of the rear axle components off here. Unfortunately it wasn't a one-man job, so Lou had to come and help me. As you can see, the sort of trailing arm is now on the floor there. The bracket bush, which is there, was in there. It mounts on that bracket there. And you saw the shock come off. Yeah, as I say, that involved some serious manpower, so it took longer than hoped. But as you can see here, we've left all the rust converter and rust remover products on for quite some time now, and it really has come up great. It's just eaten away at it, and this whole area right along here is looking really, really good. And Lewis is going around the rest of the chassis here, putting on more of the rust converter. Then we're gonna have a break, leave it for an hour or so and just let it start doing its thing. Come back and see what we're left with. But yeah, important that we get a few of these brackets off. That shock mount there, there's the fuel filter mount there, exhaust mounts. I think that's probably about it.
Right, so we have refueled and we've left this for probably about 15 minutes and everything's blue. We don't know anything other than that, so we don't know how well it's working, but everything is blue. So next we are going to concentrate together and try and get this rear axle out and then see how long it's been. It will probably take us longer than we anticipate anyway. And then reassess and probably look at taking this stuff back and covering it in our primer. So Alex is on the floor. He likes it down there. He's not particularly doing anything, but no, he's taking this top nut off the shock, and no, he's just undoing the bottom. We're going to start to disassemble the axles so we can start to take it off. So first off, we're going to start off with these 4 bolts over here, which should drop the A-frame down, and then we've got the same on the other side to drop the shock off, and what did you call that?
Trailing arm.
And the trailing arm. Yeah, we think that's what it's called, but who knows. And then all we've got is the anti-roll bar or sway bar back there, and then we should be free.
Right, so you will have seen on the time lapse, if it didn't go too quickly, that we managed to finally get this A-frame out. It was completely jammed on here because one of the bolts was seized. Through some coercion, it finally came off. The A-frame has dropped down. You can see at the back there's the high lift jack on there, and we jacked it completely up. Everything now is loose, sway bars on the floor, A-bars off, shocks went earlier, and the springs, they just loosen as the truck comes up. So the whole thing was loose, the axle rolled forward, so we've rolled it back and we're just going to leave it as is because it's got quite late in the day. So we don't have time to even make a start on the front axle at this point, so there's no advantage to having the rear one off. So that is just sort of sitting there in position on top of the springs. So now what we're going to do is tidy up a little bit, then we're going to wipe down with some degreaser all over the chassis, and we're just going to prime the exposed areas. Right, there we go, guys. We've just chucked a load of primer down. This is not at all anywhere near finished or the sort of final effect we're going for. This is purely just to protect the chassis over the next few weeks when we're unable to work on it. So there we go. It's amazing, hides a multitude of sins. But yeah, it's looking pretty good, and we were very, very happy with how the chassis came up after that rust treatment. There's a lot of good metal there, and most of it is savable. So we're going to leave it there for today. Unfortunately, we didn't get as much done as we would have liked. Every single bolt fought us on that rear axle,
but we managed to get a lot of the rust contained, and now it's covered at least for the next few weeks. So hopefully you'll join us on our next video when we get the front axle off and actually drop the chassis properly, so we can flip it over and have a look at the underside. Don't forget to write your comments if you want to tell us how we should have done it.
And of course, guys, as always, please do hit that subscribe button, and if you want more regular updates, check us out on Instagram.
Also, hit the buttons up here if you want to see our previous videos.
Thanks very much, guys.
See ya.